Next up is our Open Here podcast with host Tiff Phillips and her guest, life coach and professional organizer Kim Caple.
Hi, I'm with Kim Caple. She is a professional organizer and life coach and owner of Shine Life and Home. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So I got to ask you, what's your background? Where did you grow up?
So I'm a South Shore girl. I was born in Boston and then lived in Quincy for a little while. We then moved to Rainham. That's where I spent sort of most of my growing up years. And then moved to Bridgewater in high school, but because Bridgewater Rainham's a regional school district, I was lucky enough to not have to switch schools. I went to Bridgewater Rainham Regional High School, and that's where I really found my love of the visual and performing arts and met my husband.
So what did you do before you became a life coach?
How long do you have?
We got some time.
It's sort of been a long journey, but I think that's kind of the norm these days. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in interior design from Oneida College, and I was an interior designer for about 5 years in Boston and San Francisco, mostly in the office design space. And it wasn't really quite fulfilling me in the way that I had hoped. And then, unfortunately, with the sudden death of my 19-year-old brother-in-law, that just changed everything for my husband and I, changed the course of life. And I just realized how short life was and how I really wanted a career that was meaningful and I felt like I was contributing. So I started working with adults with developmental disabilities in a vocational day program, which I loved. And then that led me to getting a teaching certification. And I taught elementary art for about 5 years. Also taught at various art programs in the community and at the college level. And then when my second daughter was born, I became a full-time stay-at-home mom. And when she was 6, I decided to get back into the workforce. And unfortunately, just because of lack of flexibility, going back into the classroom wasn't really an option. My husband's job was very demanding. He had a lot of nights and weekends. We didn't have a lot of family around to help, so I needed something with more flexibility. I was lucky enough to find a job within the Plymouth Public Schools for a program called Plymouth Family Network. It's grant funded and it provides programming and resources for families with children under the age of 6. And I actually still work there part-time. And then I became a life coach during COVID because what else was there to do? I had thought about it for a long time, and it was a great time to do it, something productive with my time that, so I was able to find an online program and really enjoyed it.
So I was reading on your website, and you said that at one point, as much as you loved and adored your family, you grew to resent your responsibilities, which I know a lot of people can relate to that. Mm-hmm. Why do you think, and I've heard that a lot, why do you think people are starting to feel that way, women in general, women in particular?
Yeah. I think, it's for a lack of options sometimes. I decided to stay home and be a full-time mom because of a lack of affordable childcare. It was going to cost more money for me to have 2 children in daycare than to be back in the classroom. And so that just didn't make sense for us financially. We didn't have that core family around, which I think a lot of people don't nowadays, that could help out. So it's a lack of choices maybe. And it's hard. It's hard work being full-time stay-at-home. It's demanding. It's isolating. And it can be really challenging. And especially if you didn't come by it by choice, but by necessity, it can cause, some anger and resentment. And I loved what I was doing, but I also think the mistake I made was over-identifying with my role as a mom. And I think it's really important to keep those things in your life that you find that bring you joy outside of motherhood, because that's only going to give you a more fulfilling life all around.
What was that turning point like for you?
So ironically, it was through an activity related to my children. I was a Girl Scout leader, and I went to a conference, and the keynote speaker was Lori Mackinac. She's a life coach in Wareham, my life coach now for over 10 years. But that's where I first met her, and I picked up a flyer at the conference, and was offering a 6-week course that I couldn't afford as a stay-at-home mom at the time, but I just felt like I had more to learn from her, and that there was more that I was going to get from her at some point. So I kept that brochure. I referred back to it several times. I think I had it for several years. And I finally looked at it one day and just decided to make it a priority to take that 6-week Powerful Women class. And it just changed my whole way of thinking, like in terms of learning about, choices, responsibility, intention, mindfulness. It just opened up a whole new world to me that I had not been aware of before, and how to regain your own power. And slowly, like I said, it's been over 10 years, like step by step by step, I've been able to put those things into practice and make really positive changes.
What does a typical day look like for you?
So typical day, I'm gonna plug morning routine, because this has been one of those baby steps that's huge for me, that I've realized, really sets you up for success in the rest of your day. So, my morning routine is I make my bed first thing when I get up. I never thought I'd be a person who made my bed every day.
I love it.
It literally takes less than 2 minutes, but I feel like once I've made my bed, like I got it together. And then I will have some coffee, chat with my husband for a minute, get my daughter off to school. And then another one of those key pieces is some kind of physical activity, whether it's stretching or cardio. I just know that I need to move my body in some positive way. And then meditation, short, could be 5 minutes, really key to my mental health. And then I'll get ready for the day, and I listen to some kind of podcast or audiobook that is inspiring and motivating, because a lot of times we don't have the motivation ourselves, but you can borrow it from somebody else. So I'll listen to that. And then the workday starts, whether it's a PFN day or it's a life coaching day. And that might be, for me, if it's life coaching, I could have a couple client calls or go to a client's house. I could be talking to an organization about doing a professional development program for them. And then picking my daughter up from school, and the whole after-school routine starts. And then, the whole dinner thing. And then after dinner, I might do a professional development workshop or have another client call, and then do that evening routine of preparing to make the next day successful. So, putting away your clothes, picking out an outfit for the next day, kind of reviewing my schedule for the next day to see what I can do the night ahead to prepare to make the next day successful.
There's definitely like an organization component to your business. Now, I have to ask, how do you think organizing your home, organizing yourself contributes to setting yourself up for success?
Yeah. So my previous mantra prior to my life coach was, I'm a train wreck, which you can imagine the results that came from that. I just felt completely unorganized. And that's what kind of started this whole journey for me, in terms of knowing that I needed to change, because that mantra wasn't serving me, but I didn't quite know how. And so over the course of all of these years and all of these baby steps, like, I've found hacks, I've found things that work for me and have worked for other people to help them, even if they're not naturally organized. I have ADHD. Like, organization does not come naturally to me. I do it now as a profession because I've had to work so hard at it. I know how to do it maybe in a way that other people don't, or I understand the struggles in a way that other people don't. So keeping myself organized is key to reducing my stress level, reducing my anxiety, keeping my house uncluttered. It just helps me function at a much better level.
And I have to ask, how has being a life coach fulfilled you?
I love working collaboratively. I just find that it's energizing, and as a life coach, working with clients, it's a very co-creative process. So when you're working with a client, you are together coming up with, what kind of changes they want to make, what those goals look like, what action steps it's going to take to get there, and celebrating their wins. And I know how huge life coaching has been in my life and how much it has changed me for the better. And I just love being able to provide that for somebody else.
Do you have any good organization tips? I need to know. I want to pick your brain about this.
Yes, although the organization tip I love the best actually kind of sort of comes before the organization, and that is to reduce your inventory. The average American household has 300,000 items in it. I know, it's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, 300,000 items. And every one of those items is on your invisible mental to-do list, right? It's like, where is it? How am I going to store it? Does it need to be winterized? Does it have batteries? Did I let Aunt Matilda borrow it? Whatever it is. It's a lot on your mind. And so reducing inventory so that you're not organizing stuff you don't even need would be my best tip. And one of my favorite quotes is by William Morris. He was an English textile designer, and he said, "Have nothing in your house that you don't find to be beautiful or useful." So I think that is, for me, kind of been like the guiding, way that I decide what stays and what goes. And I think sort of the modern version of that is like Marie Kondo with "Does it bring joy?"
Right.
Yeah. And so I think, does it bring joy or is it useful? If it does, great. And if it doesn't, then it probably needs to go. So I think that is the best tip I could give is reduce your inventory, try to make it simple, organize only what you need to have.
So we're approaching 2024, and this will probably air in 2024. So what advice do you have for people who are maybe making some New Year's resolutions and want to follow through on them? Because most New Year's resolutions are gone within a month?
Yeah, 80% of New Year's resolutions fail before the end of January. So statistically, they don't work. I would say a couple of things. If you definitely want to have some goals for the new year, which isn't a bad thing, keep them very simple and break them down into baby steps, because we want to focus on progress over perfection. And you really need to have attainable goals. And when you see that progress, of course, it propels that momentum that you want to keep going. But I think the mistake most people make is they decide they want to change their whole life January 1st. And when they haven't done that by January 12th, they're overwhelmed and frustrated. And so keeping, a simple goal, and once you get there, then you can kind of get to the next goal. And also, I would say having an accountability partner is super helpful, having some kind of support and somebody to celebrate those wins. I actually don't do New Year's resolutions. I do something called One Word, which I also learned from Life Coach Lori. There's lots of books out there on it, and if you Google One Word, you'll find all kinds of information. But it's choosing one word that kind of has a theme for you for the year. So to figure out what that word is, I kind of like to make it like a self-care moment at the end of 2023, or at the beginning of 2024. Sit down, get a cup of tea, kind of review the past year. And again, remembering to celebrate what did work, because I think we so much focus on what doesn't work in our lives, we forget to celebrate the wins. So, what worked? What did I do well? What was I happy with? And then kind of all right, what would I like to see more of next year? What would I like maybe some less of? And you can start to see a theme. So, for example, my word this year was joy. And I chose joy because I felt like I was feeling like the world was so heavy, so much going on, so much that was upsetting that I needed to create these big moments of joy in my life. That's how it started. And then by February or March, when I wasn't scheduling in these huge joy events, I thought, wow, I'm really failing at joy. And I'm like, is that even possible? And then I re-examined and I'm like, all right, it's not about creating these huge joyful moments. It's about finding joy in the everyday, in little things that you're doing. And then I realized how inextricably connected joy and gratitude are. And it was about those little moments of gratitude. And then it kind of evolved into like, well, how can I bring joy to other people? Because that brings joy to me. And so you just really become like a student of that word, and it ends up permeating all areas of your life. So highly recommend.
I love that. It really condenses like your vision, your mission for the next year. I love that.
And you can't fail at one word.
Right. It's true. It's true. Keep it simple. I like it. What's next for you?
That's a good question. So when I started being a life coach, I said, you know what, I want to do this. I want to start it up while my youngest daughter's still in high school, but I'm just going to let it evolve organically, because I do really want to enjoy the next year and a half I have with her before she goes off to college. So I don't know. I don't know what it's gonna bring. I would love to do some more workshops and retreats. I love doing retreats and more coaching and be able to help more people. But exactly what that looks like, I'm not sure yet.
And that's okay. You don't have to. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey friend, thanks for stopping by. If you like this video by The Local Scene, share the love and give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe.